Have you ever loved someone so deeply that it felt like the universe itself aligned to bring them into your life? Like finally, after all the heartbreaks, all the waiting, all the silent prayers, this one felt right. But just when your soul whispered, "This is it," they vanished. Not once, not twice, but over and over again. The calls stopped, the messages dried up. The door that once opened with warmth slammed shut with silence. And you're left asking, why does love always leave when I finally believe in it? But what if I told you this wasn't punishment, this wasn't rejection, this was sacred redirection? Carl Jung once said, the universe doesn't speak in words, it speaks in signs, symbols, and synchronicities. You don't lose someone because you're unworthy. You lose them because your soul is being called to rise. Maybe that denied love wasn't meant to complete you. It was meant to awaken you. So if you've ever wondered why the universe gives and then takes away, this video might change the way you see heartbreak forever. Chapter 1. When love feels fated, but fails. There are moments in life when someone enters your world and everything just clicks. You didn't plan for them, you didn't chase them, but somehow your paths crossed like it was written in the stars. It could have been a glance across a room, a conversation that felt effortless, a connection that defied logic. They say lightning never strikes the same place twice, but with them, it felt like the universe struck your heart with 1,000 volts of recognition. You don't even know how to explain it, you just know. You know there's something divine about this, something rare, something so beautifully timed that it feels impossible not to call it fate. Every sign points to this being the moment you've been waiting for. The conversations are deep, the timing feels perfect, and somewhere inside you feel like the universe aligned just for the two of you. You begin to imagine a future. You start to believe this person might be the answer to your loneliness, the healing for all those quiet nights you spent wondering if real love still existed. But just as fast as it started, it ends. No warning, no big fight. Just distance, just confusion, just a deafening silence that screams louder than any goodbye ever could. And the pain is worse than a breakup. Because how do you grieve something that never had a chance to grow? How do you mourn something that felt so divinely orchestrated, yet died without explanation? You check your phone more than you'd like to admit. You search for signs. You replay conversations, trying to find the exact moment everything changed. But all you find is a void, and it hurts. It hurts so deeply because this wasn't just a crush, this felt written, like destiny had finally arrived, only to leave before you could even touch it. But here's the truth, as hard as it is to accept, Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in psychology, didn't believe in random events. He believed in synchronicity, the idea that the universe speaks not through logic, but through patterns, signs, and meaningful coincidences. In Jung's view, these encounters that shake your soul and then vanish, they're not accidents, they're not punishments, they're messages. Messages from the unconscious, from your soul, from the universe itself. You didn't lose that person because you weren't enough. You didn't lose them because something was wrong with you. You lost them because something within you still needed to wake up, to evolve, to rise. Jung believed that every soul is on a journey of individuation, a path to becoming whole. And sometimes, the people who feel most fated are actually mirrors, sent not to stay, but to reflect back the parts of you that still need healing. What if that person didn't reject you? What if they activated something within you? What if they entered your life just to show you your own capacity to feel, to love deeply, to hope again? What if their purpose wasn't to complete your story, but to crack it open? Because here's the hardest truth you'll ever hear. The universe will send you exactly who you think you want, just to show you who you really need to become. And when that love disappears, it's not the universe being cruel. It's the universe clearing the space, so you can become the person who doesn't chase love, but attracts it from a place of wholeness. Sometimes, love feels fated, and still fails. But it's in that failure that your soul begins to awaken, because rejection, that's just sacred redirection in disguise. Chapter 2. Synchronicity. When the universe won't let you forget. So you've made the decision. You've told yourself it's time to move on. You delete their pictures from your gallery. You erase the old chats. You unfollow their social media. You stop going to the places that remind you of them. You even start smiling in photos again, telling yourself, "See, I'm fine." But deep inside, you know you're lying. Because just when you start to feel okay again, something happens. You're sitting in a cafe, lost in your own thoughts, and the person at the next table mentions their name, not even in context, just the name. And your heart skips a beat. You turn on the radio, and there it is, that song. The one you both used to hum, the one that played during your first drive together, the one that made ordinary moments feel like a movie scene, or maybe it's in your dreams. You see them, not in pain, not in anger, but in peace, smiling, standing somewhere familiar. And when you wake up, your chest aches with a longing you thought you buried months ago. It happens again, and again, until you start asking yourself, why does the universe keep doing this? I'm trying to forget. Why won't it let me? Carl Jung, the great psychoanalyst, gave us the answer. He called it synchronicity, the experience of meaningful coincidences that cannot be explained by cause and effect, but carry deep emotional and spiritual significance. It's not random. It's not your imagination playing tricks on you. It's your unconscious mind trying to speak through the outer world. Jung believed the psyche doesn't speak in words. It speaks in symbols, in patterns, in dreams, and in the unexplainable timing of events that mirror your emotional state. You think the universe is playing games, but what if it's just holding up a mirror? Because these signs, the name, the song, the dreams, they're not meant to bring you back to that person. They're not signs to reconnect. They're clues that there's still something unresolved within you, something unhealed, something that needs your attention, not theirs. You're not haunted by them. You're haunted by the version of you that existed when you loved them. That version of you, vulnerable, hopeful, trusting, didn't die with the relationship. It got buried under pain, abandonment, confusion, and every sign you see is not pulling you back to the past. It's pulling you deeper into yourself. Your soul is saying, I'm still here, I still need closure, I still need peace. This is why we often feel stuck, not because of the person, but because we never completed the emotional cycle they triggered. Jung taught that healing is not forgetting. Healing is integrating. It's when your conscious mind meets your unconscious wounds and makes peace. So if the universe keeps sending you signs, pay attention. Not because you're meant to chase them, but because you're meant to face the version of yourself that still believes you needed them to feel whole. The signs will stop, not when you forget them, but when you finally remember yourself. Chapter 3. A love that was never meant to stay, but was meant to awaken you. There are certain loves in life that don't follow the rules. They don't arrive slowly, quietly, or logically. They burst into your life like a sudden storm, unexpected, powerful, and unforgettable. And for a brief moment, you feel alive in a way you never knew you could. It's not about the duration. It's about the depth. It's about the way their presence cracks something open inside you, something that's been locked away for years. Maybe since childhood, maybe since your last heartbreak, maybe since the day you stopped believing you deserved to feel deeply again. And just when you think you've finally found peace, they vanish. No goodbye that satisfies. No explanation that makes sense. Just silence, distance, absence. And in that silence, you're left asking a painful question. Why would the universe send me someone who feels so right, only to take them away? Why awaken my heart, only to leave it bleeding? To tear down the walls you built to protect yourself, and show you what it feels like to truly be seen again. They come to wake up the real you, the version of you that had been living on autopilot, the version of you that had been hiding behind roles, expectations, trauma, and fear. They don't stay because their purpose was never permanence. Their purpose was transformation. Jung believed the soul doesn't evolve through comfort. It evolves through disruption, through emotional earthquakes that shake the foundation of who you thought you were. That love wasn't fake, it was real. So real that it touched your unconscious, the deepest part of you. but it wasn't meant to complete your story. It was meant to begin a new chapter within you. And yes, it hurts. It hurts more than words can explain. Because the absence of that kind of love feels like something was stolen from you. But in truth, it wasn't taken away. It served its mission. It came to peel back your layers, to show you what you were truly capable of feeling, to make you remember that your heart still works, that it still beats, that it still aches for truth, and sometimes that's all it takes to awaken your soul. One person, one encounter, one connection so intense that it burns through your emotional numbness like sunlight through fog. You'll always remember them, not because of how long they stayed, but because of what they unlocked. They were a catalyst, not a conclusion. And when you finally accept that, when you stop chasing closure and start honoring the awakening, that's when true healing begins. Because the love that didn't stay was never a mistake. It was a divine mirror, sent to show you that your heart was never broken. It was just asleep. Chapter 4. Individuation. Why the soul needs heartbreak. Carl Jung called it individuation, the sacred, painful, transformative process of becoming whole. But here's the paradox. This journey doesn't begin when life is smooth. It doesn't begin when everything is going your way. It begins when your world falls apart, when love disappears, when the person you thought would stay leaves, when the silence becomes louder than any scream you've ever heard. Because in that silence, something begins to stir. Not just pain, but awareness. Not just loneliness, but truth. See, most people think heartbreak is the end of something, but Jung believed it was the beginning of the descent into the unconscious, the place where your truest self lives, buried under layers of ego, trauma, denial, and distraction. Think about it. When life is full, when you're loved, busy, entertained, you don't question much. You live on the surface. You wear masks. You play roles. You avoid the shadows. But when heartbreak hits, when someone you love is ripped from your life, suddenly the distractions vanish, the noise fades, and you're left with you. No filters, no lies, just raw, unfiltered self. And in that space, the shadows start to surface. The childhood wounds you never faced, the fears you covered with confidence, the insecurities you hid behind relationships, the loneliness you tried to numb with love. You start to see the parts of yourself that have been screaming for attention for years, but you were too busy loving someone else to hear them. This is the beginning of individuation. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. Jung believed that the psyche has one true goal: not success, not popularity, not even happiness, but wholeness. And wholeness doesn't come from perfect relationships. It comes from facing the brokenness inside you, the parts you've rejected, the parts you've shamed, the parts you thought made you unlovable. Heartbreak rips you open, but it also cracks the shell around your soul. It forces you into solitude, not to punish you, but to reveal you. Because only when you're stripped bare, only when everything external is taken, can you finally ask, who am I really? What do I believe? What have I been running from? And what within me still needs healing? This is where the true work begins. It's not in texting them back. It's not in checking their stories. It's not in hoping they return. It's in returning to yourself, to the little child inside you who never felt enough, to the teenager who was abandoned, to the adult who keeps trying to earn love by losing themselves. Individuation is the process of gathering those lost fragments and saying, I see you, you're part of me, and I will not abandon you again. This is why the soul needs heartbreak. Not because the universe is cruel, but because the soul is wise. It knows that sometimes only deep emotional pain can break the illusion you've been living in. Only heartbreak can strip away what isn't real, so what is real can finally be born. And when you rise from that, you don't just survive, you become, not who the world wants you to be, but who you were always meant to be. Whole, authentic, unshakable. Chapter 5. Alchemy. The fire that burns everything false. We often think transformation looks beautiful, that it's soft, gentle, peaceful, but real transformation, the kind that changes your very soul, almost always starts with destruction. Enter alchemy, the ancient mystical process believed to turn lead into gold. But the real alchemy is not physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's internal. It's about turning suffering into awakening. And the most powerful catalyst for that suffering? Heartbreak. Not just the breakup kind, but the kind of heartbreak that fractures your identity, the kind that makes you question your worth, your beliefs, your very existence, the kind that comes when someone you gave your soul to walks away without explanation. Or worse, stays physically but withdraws emotionally, leaving you starved in a relationship where you're constantly begging to be seen. That's the fire, the invisible furnace. And here's what nobody tells you. This pain has a purpose. The moment love is denied, the moment that emotional rug is pulled out from under you, you are tossed into an unseen alchemical fire. It doesn't burn your skin. It burns your illusions, your assumptions, your old beliefs about who you are and what it means to be loved. At first, you'll resist it. You'll want to run, you'll look for something, anything, and to numb it. A rebound, a distraction, a bottle, a vice, a lie. Anything that can give you temporary anesthesia from the unbearable ache in your chest. But Carl Jung had a brutal truth. Every time you avoid pain, you avoid your evolution. And every escape delays the process of becoming who you truly are. Because the fire, as cruel as it feels, isn't here to destroy you. It's here to purify you. Think of it this way. You've spent years building an identity, one made up of masks, stories, societal expectations. Maybe you became the caretaker, the strong one, the overgiver, the fixer, the one who loses themselves just to be enough for others. But heartbreak doesn't care about your image. It comes in like divine chaos, breaking the false self so that your authentic self can finally breathe. It's the soul's intervention, the universe's way of saying, you've wandered too far from who you are. Come back home. The fire burns through, the people-pleaser in you, the fantasy that love should be pain, the belief that your worth is tied to someone else's validation, the fear that you are unlovable without performing. And in that intense heat, something sacred happens. You start remembering who you were before you learned to perform for love, before trauma taught you to shrink, before the world told you to be less so someone else could feel more. This is where alchemy begins. And it's not pretty. You cry, you break. You grieve not just the person, but the version of you that tolerated less than you deserved. But as you sit in the ashes, you start to notice something. A flicker, a spark, a quiet whisper inside that says, this pain is doing something to me. It's not killing me, it's revealing me. That's the gold. Not in someone new, not in revenge, not in pretending you're over it, but in the rebirth of your self-worth. Carl Jung believed the journey to the self, the process of individuation, requires this burning. Because the unconscious mind only speaks through symbols, pain, and patterns. Heartbreak is the symbol. Suffering is the message. And the fire is the bridge between the egos and the soul. You don't come out of this as the same person. You come out lighter, more honest, more whole, more aligned with your truth. This is the real gold of alchemy. Not perfection, not eternal happiness, but clarity, peace, power, freedom from illusions that never served you. The fire didn't take your love. It returned you to your truth. And that is worth every tear you cried. Chapter 6. The self knows what the ego can't understand. You wanted them, not casually, not half-heartedly. You felt it in your bones. Every part of you believed this was right, that it was finally your time. You were ready to love, to give, to commit. And for a brief moment, it felt like the universe had finally said, yes. But then, it all unraveled. No explanation, no closure, just confusion. And a haunting sense of why. Why would something that felt so aligned fall apart? Why would someone who fit your soul walk away? It doesn't make sense to the mind, because the mind wants logic. The ego wants control. It craves predictability, validation, emotional safety. But here's the truth Jung understood. The self, your deepest, most unconscious essence, has its own intelligence, and sometimes it overrides your conscious desires. It whispers, "Not this." Not because it's cruel, but because it knows what the ego can't. You see, your ego wanted that person. Your ego was convinced this was love, because they made you feel seen, desired, excited, alive. But your soul knew the full picture. It knew the road you were meant to walk, the lessons you had to learn, the purpose you were born to fulfill. And sometimes that person, no matter how beautiful, no matter how right they felt, was never part of that path, or not meant to walk it with you yet. Because love isn't always alignment. Sometimes it's temptation. Sometimes it's a test to see if you'll chase comfort and/or truth. The ego chases emotional highs. It wants the romance, the validation, the fairy tale ending. But the self, the inner core of your being, wants something far more dangerous and divine: awakening. And awakening doesn't always come from love that stays. It often comes from love that leaves. The self knows that if you had stayed in that relationship, you might have dimmed yourself. You might have sacrificed your truth just to avoid being alone. You might have built a beautiful life on a foundation of silent self-betrayal. The self doesn't care about what looks good on paper. It doesn't care about how many people told you you two were perfect. It cares about your growth, your evolution, your wholeness. That's why it says no. Even when everything in you is screaming yes, it blocks the call, it shuts the door, it lets them walk away. Not because you weren't good enough, but because staying would have meant abandoning the real you. And here's what's even harder to accept. Sometimes the universe will let your heart break to protect your soul. That love you lost? It wasn't fake, it was real, but not aligned. The version of you that wanted them was still healing, still seeking validation, still unsure of who you truly were. And the self, in its ancient silent wisdom, knew that you were meant for more. Not necessarily more love, but more truth, more freedom, more inner clarity. So if you're sitting there confused, hurt, and lost in the story of "but I was ready," know this: you were ready. But not for them. You were ready to meet yourself. And that's the relationship you've been avoiding your whole life. Chapter 7. Love denied is a mirror, not a mistake. When someone denies your love, your first instinct is self-blame. You ask yourself 1,000 painful questions. Was I not enough? Was I too much? Did I do something wrong? You replay moments. You search for cracks. You beg the past to make more sense than the silence you're left with. But here's a truth the ego resists. A denied love is not a verdict on your worth. It's a mirror. A mirror reflecting what still lives unhealed inside you. It's easy to romanticize what you lost, to place them on a pedestal, to believe they were your light, your chance, your destiny. But what if they weren't your missing half? What if they were just the trigger? Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate." That person wasn't fate. They were a mirror, showing you your hidden wounds, the parts of you that ache for validation, the places within where you still confuse love with rescue, the beliefs that say, "I have to perform to be loved." They didn't create those patterns, they revealed them. And that's what mirrors do. They don't lie, they don't flatter. They simply show you the truth you've been avoiding. When they entered your life, you felt electric, seen, desired, understood. Not because they were magical, but because they reflected back to you a version of yourself you wanted to believe in. They tapped into your fantasies. They mirrored your emotional hunger. They fit the shape of your wounds like a key in a broken lock. And when they left, it wasn't the loss of them that hurt the most. It was the collapse of that reflection. The mirror shattered, and with it, your illusion of safety, worth, and wholeness. But here's the secret hidden in heartbreak. That pain isn't proof of failure. It's a spotlight on where your soul still needs you. Instead of asking, "Why didn't they love me?" ask, "What part of me did they reflect that still feels unlovable?" Instead of chasing closure, chase understanding. What were you seeking from them that you haven't given yourself? What did their silence stir up? Abandonment, rejection, shame? What story did you create in your mind that they would complete you? You see, they weren't your lesson. You were. They were just the catalyst, the flame that lit the fuse, the mirror that showed you not who they were, but who you are beneath the masks. And here's the most beautiful part. Mirrors don't just show you what's broken, they also show you who you have the power to become. That denied love cracked you open, not to punish you, but to reveal the places you've yet to explore, the confidence you've yet to embody, the wholeness you've yet to claim. Because sometimes the greatest love story of your life begins when someone walks away, and you finally turn toward your reflection, not with judgment, but with grace. Chapter 8, From Longing to Liberation. In the beginning, it feels like theft, as if the universe has robbed you of something sacred. You wake up every morning with that ache in your chest, a heavy silence that echoes their absence. It's not just the loss of a person, it's the loss of a future you secretly started building with them in your mind. The morning routines you imagined together, the vacations, the laughter, the growing old, gone, vanished, not just from your life but from your timeline, your soul's narrative. It feels like a violation, like someone reached into your heart and stole a piece you'll never get back. You cling to old texts, old photos, old memories, not because you're weak, but because letting go feels like erasing something real. You keep hoping they'll come back, that maybe the universe made a mistake, that maybe if you become better, more evolved, more patient, they'll return. But slowly, almost invisibly, something begins to shift, not overnight, not through force, but through fire, through silence, through the quiet nights when you cry without reason, and the long days where you realize the world is still spinning without them. It begins as exhaustion. You get tired of missing them, tired of checking your phone, tired of romanticizing the past and punishing yourself for what never was. Then, it turns into awareness. You start to see things you couldn't before. How much of yourself you gave away. How many red flags you painted white. How you mistook emotional intensity for spiritual alignment. And suddenly, the question changes from, why did they leave me? To, why did I ever abandon myself to keep them? This is the turning point, the shift from longing to liberation. Because here's the truth, what was taken was never yours to keep, that love. It came to awaken, not to stay. It came to pull you apart, not as punishment, but as preparation. It had to break you, so you could meet you. Because what remained after they left, the stillness, the ache, the emptiness, that wasn't a void. That was space. Space to finally hear your own voice. Space to feel your own worth. Space to meet the version of yourself that isn't defined by who stays, but by who rises. You become more real, more awake, more you. No longer trying to fit into someone else's idea of love. No longer craving approval to feel valuable. No longer molding your soul just to be chosen. You realize you were never meant to be completed by someone else. You were meant to become whole on your own. And when you get there, when the ache quiets, when the silence turns into peace, when the longing transforms into light, that's when you understand you didn't just survive. You evolved. You saw through the illusion, saw into yourself, saw that the most sacred love was never theirs to give. It was always yours to remember. And now, you're not waiting for anyone. You're not broken. You're free. Let the fire transform you. So if you're going through it right now, if your heart feels like it's carrying more weight than it was ever meant to hold, if the universe has just said no to a love that felt like your destiny, if you're standing in the wreckage of something you thought was sacred, don't run. Don't chase closure in someone who was never meant to stay. Don't numb yourself with distractions that only delay your healing. And please, don't shrink to become lovable again. You were never broken. You were being rebuilt. This pain you feel, it's not here to destroy you, it's here to awaken you. Your soul is speaking. Not through logic, not through comfort, but through signs, through dreams, through the ache in your chest that refuses to go away. Because transformation doesn't whisper, it burns. So let it burn. Let it strip you of who you're not. Let it pull the masks from your face. Let it tear away every version of you that was born from fear, abandonment, and survival. Let it take everything that is false, so that only the truth remains. And when it's done, you'll stand in the ashes, but you won't be empty. You'll be reborn, not as someone who survived heartbreak, but as someone who transcended it. Because this isn't just the end of a love story, it's the beginning of the most powerful relationship you'll ever have, the one you build with yourself. And as Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This is your moment to stop calling it fate and start calling it freedom. So if this message found you, if it stirred something in you, then it was. Before you go, take a deep breath. You've just walked through the fire. And if you made it to the end of this video, that means some part of your soul was ready to hear this. You're not alone in this pain. We've all loved deeply. We've all lost something we thought would stay, but now you know the truth. What left you was never meant to break you. It was meant to build you. If this spoke to something inside you, if it gave your pain a voice, then share it. Because someone else out there is going through the same fire, and your one share could be the light they've been searching for. And if you want to keep walking this path of truth, healing, and inner transformation, make sure you subscribe. There's more waiting for you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for feeling. Thank you for being here. This is not the end. This is your becoming.